When the pressure is high and the energy low, that's when your business needs inspiration to change and to grow. It's also when true captains show up. Hi, I'm Mark Francis, and I'm the host of this podcast that invites industry leaders from all over the world to answer the question, who's your captain? When you need to motivate and to mobilize, to develop and enable your team. Whether you are new to being a leader or you aspire to be a captain, this podcast is for you. Welcome to Who's Your Captain? I'm your host, Mark Francis. I'm simply thrilled to be joined today by Simon Hawtrey-Coombs. Simon, good morning.
Good morning.
It's awesome to have you with me, Simon, for loads of reasons. Entrepreneurial leader, so led in many different industries, be that property, franchise management, distribution, supply chain, loads, and we'll talk about that. And also entrepreneur in sport in terms of leadership, of president of the Bournemouth Rugby Club, and many, many more. In that context, where do I start? In that context, I'd love to get your headline thoughts about how do you lead change? Because you are a change leader. I see how you've done that brilliantly as part of the leadership team at Bournemouth Rugby Club. And that's just my experience, but I see it in your amazing peer-to-peer group that you're heavily involved in. So what's your reflection on what great leadership is?
Great question, Mark. I always think about having the result, the outcome. You know, what input do we need to get the outcome? And if we look at the great leaders in our life and in our lifetime, success leaves clues, successful countries leave clues, towns, cities, people, they leave an abundance of clues for us to follow. But I think to get to where we want to, that's the outcome, is to set that expectation. Yeah. And I think sharing that with your people as well in terms of the expectation of what that standard or the bar is, and always thinking about how we can raise the bar collectively, collaboratively as a team. And you know, when I talk about the success leaves clues, if we look at the All Blacks, you know, what a win rate they have in terms of set of values and expectations that they've created around that team. You can look at Sir Clive Woodward taking the team to Australia with Johnny Wilkinson and setting that expectation that we will arrive 15 minutes early for any engagement we're about to embark on. We will look like $1 million when we turn up. These tiny attributes make such a difference to the outcomes. The cycling team, our Olympians, everything we do is about that expectation and putting in the hard work. And I think it's very fortunate to be with a very great leader who took Bournemouth, our beloved
football club. This one is it, football club, yeah,
the football club, to the Premiership. You know, from staring at the barrel of defeat, demise, from lots of factors, but to be taken on the journey, Eddie Howe and Jeff Mostyn, to where they are today. And Jeff always shares with us, he's very generous with his time, he's an amazing, inspiring gentleman, talking about the attributes of success. And he said, there's 3 things, Simon.
Right, I'm taking notes. I've got my pen.
and one of which, the first thing about creating success, expectation, and handing the baton, is the first thing that we need to do is to work hard. You know, we can manifest, we can think of, we can set goals, we can create that stuff, but the number one
game. A good game.
Hard work. And he said the second thing, Simon, is hard work. And the third and most important thing, you must remember, this is hard work. Hard work will get you to the outcome that you've created around the expectation. And I'm sorry if that's a long-winded way of answering your question.
It's a great setup because it's triggering loads of thoughts for me. And there's some things I'm going to just replay back because I think they're so important. Yes, it's be clear about what you want to achieve, but there are other aspects to what you just said, like great achievers, great nations, great people like Jeff Mostyn. They leave clues, don't they? That
Mm.
just try and role model someone that you see as being a great leader. What is it that they do, not just in the big things, but also in the very small things, like your example of arrive 15 minutes early for everything. That simple principle is sending a signal that we have a level of expectation and quality that's just higher than the norm. On time is not on time, it's 15 minutes early, and
Yeah.
that's just a slightly different level to anyone else. I'd love to take you back to your DPD days when you were leading a franchise effectively and driving growth in a business. Way back then, what was your great vision as a leader, not just in that business, but beyond? What did you want to achieve when you were first setting out as a business entrepreneur?
Well, it goes back 25 years ago, and NatWest, bless them, gifted me. The banks were giving money away left, right, and centre then. I think that's what got them into a lot of trouble. But bless them, they gave me the best part of £750,000 to
Oh, good for them.
acquire the franchise. And also, I had to give a charge on my property, my
Wow.
home, which was, as an entrepreneur, you risk more than others think is wise, which I did make that risk, and I had a charge over the property to raise that money. But when I got to that business, acquired business, a trading business, it was the bottom performing depot in the United Kingdom. Okay. So
This
there's
is your
100.
point, and I'm going to just repeat this. This is so important. Your example about Bournemouth Football Club, for me as a big fan of all sports and football, Bournemouth was always that lovely local sort of Division 3 or 4 old money. And, Harry Redknapp, bless him, got them from Division 4 to 3. And they'll always be small and not very successful. And boom, there they are right in the Premiership doing incredibly well.
Yeah.
So your story's the same, right? You start at not rock bottom, but way, way down the list. Yeah, so carry on.
So that's, inheriting what can be described as perhaps a deflated team. We had the floods and the fuel crisis at that moment in time in 2001, and the back end of that recession, and the attributes of business was tough, and also had this massive debt hanging over me and a bit of a millstone around my neck. So the two things that we could do is set the expectation. So I said to my team, when I took over that depot, my first got some beers and pizzas and met them all on the evening and the day before taking that business over. And I just told them all the things I love. So I love people that turn up on time. I love people looking great in their uniform. I love really smart, clean vans. And I love the fact that we're going to be the #1 depot in the United Kingdom. We are going to become a depot of excellence. We will train incoming franchisees into this at a centre of excellence. We will find a new site. We'll purpose build a depot. We will achieve. And I've got to say, they thought I was mad.
Yeah.
Absolutely
Look where we're starting from, Simon.
Yeah. So
be realistic.
I've got an A4 sign in the reception, and it said awaiting depot of the year. So every time someone came into that business premises, you had this certificate saying awaiting depot of the year. Now, we took that depot over in 2001. The amazing Colin Milbanks, who was the CEO of the business at that moment in time, came to do the official opening of the depot in the June of the year. We took it over in the January. And at the end of 2003, we were the #1 depot in the United Kingdom with the team that I inherited from the beginning.
2 years.
Yeah.
2 years. Well, I'm going to replay something you said, because I think this is incredibly powerful for any leader, including myself. You said to your team right up front, I'm just going to tell you what I love. Now, there's an element of expectation setting, isn't there? That's the point, right? You are I like people to be on time in full. I like. But there's also there's a natural positivity about you as a leader and a can-do energy. I mean, that's when I first met you. Anyone who first meets you, Simon, we're embraced by that. Yes, we can. And yes, you matter. This is a community. We can do this together. Come on. So I'm going to steal that. Let me share with you, team, what I love. And actually, they're the expectations, aren't they?
Mm.
This is what we're going to be like. That's big. That's very powerful. So in 2 years, from there to number one.
Yeah.
And how did you take your team with you?
It's we profile our team and we get an understanding at DNA level, the motivations, and we really get a deep understanding of the individual in terms of the attributes and what's going to switch them on. And also, we've always got to be coaching and nurturing and never criticizing, because when the pointed fingers pointed at you as an individual about your performance, we get very defensive. But also around the roles and responsibilities. And we're all senior grown-up people. We're not children anymore. As children, we get told what to do. And at some point in time, normally in our mid-teens, we come to despise our parents and start grunting at them because we keep being told what to do, right? And we've got to move away from this, and then you start you start being treated as an adult when you grow up, and you stop grunting and you start the conversations and you start being part of the community. And we can do that as leaders. We can stop pointing the finger. We can start treating everyone like a teenage delinquent and shouting and giving them orders and parameters. What I've found very, very useful is not telling people what they need to do in their roles. They're adults. They know what they need to do. If you ask them, if you could give me your top 10 priorities for the next decade, next 3 years, what do they look like? Can you document them for me and have a real think about that? You don't have to give them a job description. They'll just crack on with it. And you'd say, look, that's fair enough. I really feel that your number 3 should be perhaps, what do you think? I think it probably is that. Do you think that should be number 1? And they go, well, maybe number 2. But they own it. They absolutely own that role, responsibility, and task. And say, look, I'm going to be really fair with. I think you've absolutely cracked it. There's these responsibilities that you've, in your role, you've nailed it. And then you share that with other members of the team. So, bless him, Scott, Alex, Kester, Rochelle, Jason, the team, and taking on those responsibilities. Stuart is immense because they now own that. And I'm thinking, I've got a funny story. If I can share this with you,
Go on.
My number 1 responsibility as a husband was the pointy finger, and you may be responsible for this as well, is taking the bin out, right?
I've
And
delegated it now, by the way. It used to be.
yes, but so this bin story is very relevant in a sense that you've got the pointy finger. You are responsible for the bin. Don't forget to take it out. Now, 15 years into wonderful marriage and relationship, is that always had that little Sunday night, maybe early Monday morning reminder. You've forgotten the bin. Take the bin out. Get the bin out.
So that was actually told to you. You haven't done it, have you?
Pointy finger. Yeah, just always. So that's what we do with. When you liken that to be, that's what we do without. Have you hit your KPIs? Rah rah rah. You're operating. We're always pointing the finger. Okay. Now, on the other hand, after 15 years, sometimes on a very rare occasion, there'll be a sad gentleman in his fluffy toweling dressing gown with his slippers on, looking very sad, taking the bin out. However, what the attributes of the leader could have done in that sense is that, do you know what? You're absolutely amazing. I can't recall on my hand the times that you've forgotten to take the bin out. I can't. On one hand, thinking over 15 years, how many times you've forgotten? You're amazing. In fact, I think you're probably the best bin out taker I've ever known, that man's ever known. Now, what that's done would have done for me, I'd have been moonwalking the bin out, right? And I'd be pointing the finger to all my neighbours saying, do you want your bin taken out? And do you want your bin taken out? Now, that's the attributes of the great leader in terms of nurturing and inspiring our people to a greater good. But if they can take ownership of the bin, the task, the role, the responsibility, then you're going to get a better outcome. But The other thing you've got to be mindful is that some people don't want to be there, and you can't have those people in your organization. So you've got to identify what Adrian Webster calls in his amazing book, Polar Bear Pirates, is the neg ferrets, you know, the negative energy that you have hanging around. You've got to get rid of them, whoever they are in your business, and don't ponder over that, because they are rotting, you know, the very core of the business. The bad apples have got to go, and they can do so much damage in a team that you're trying to get to the greater good. But the expectation, I can give you two more examples. It's so Clive Woodward said we're going down to Australia, we're going to win the World Cup, and Will Carling said we're going to get to the World Cup final. So very different in terms of making sure
They were
that
both right. They were both
yeah,
absolutely right.
but Will could have, he wanted to get to the final. He didn't say he wanted to win the final of the World Cup. So, but again, one of the greatest captains known to the English rugby team, 3 Grand Slams. You know, in terms of the Six Nations, no one's ever going to repeat that, you know, for a very, very long period of time. Certainly not right now.
Don't think so, unless they're French. I'm going to come back to a point you made, and because I think there's a red thread in what I'm hearing around pass the baton. So, and this is the whole theme of who's your captain. You're the captain as the leader of whichever organization you've led, and you've led many. And you have an energy and a philosophy that says, I'm going to give responsibility to others. And I'm going to ask them, what do you want to be responsible for? What are your priorities? Okay, great. Crack on. Here's the baton. I'm happy with that, because collectively we all do that, and this business will succeed. So I think pass the baton's a big red thread. Key question for me, Simon, and already anyone who's met you for the first time on this podcast will see an energy that is very special. You know, you have a yes, we can. We're all in this together. I'll help where you need it, but I trust you. That energy is infectious. How on earth do you pass it on? And I don't mean to the ones that are negative, like you said. They should leave. If they're fundamentally negative, let's get rid. But actually, most people are neither super negative or super can-do positive, yes, we can, entrepreneurial like you are. How do you pass on those energies to people who don't start from that energy base?
It's a great question. And having got it wrong and learning from our mistakes, we can't meddle by keep interfering once someone's taken ownership of being the captain and holding the baton, is to try and meddle with trying to get the baton back or interfering with how they're doing things. Now, my CEO is a great man, worked together for 25 years, never had a cross word, an amazing individual. But we were completely opposites in terms of that energy. You know, he had a very refining, high energy in a sense that he's very process and systems driven, very checklist, to-do list individual, where I sat on the very end of the spectrum, inspiring energy. But you need those two energies. But in terms of giving him a level of confidence that if I made a decision that didn't fit with where he thought the business should be, his answer would be, I don't care what Simon said. He may own this business, I run it. And that is a level of empowerment that is amazingly confidence for him to say that to someone who I've committed to perhaps changing a rate structure or committing to an extra vehicle or something that I've committed to without gaining his permission. And I think Jeff talks about, and go back to the football club again, because Jeff's offered to support and help the rugby club in terms of where we can get to in terms of one division at a time, one ruck at a time, one
Keep
game
going
at
up the
a time.
levels.
He said they had 2 boardrooms. They had Eddie's boardroom and the boardroom in terms of the executive boardroom.
So Eddie Howe, the football manager, who's now manager of Newcastle.
And Eddie wouldn't run into, Jeff's boardroom and tell him what he should be doing. And equally, Jeff would never run into Eddie Howe's boardroom, his players, and tell him what he should be doing on the field of play and what they should be doing. And I think, knowing where those boundaries are within your team and not stepping on each other's toes. And also, key is about those roles and responsibilities within the organisation, that most organisations will be duplicating them or not doing the things that should be being done. But once you've crystallized that, but going back to the fundamentals of handing the baton over, if you hand the baton over to someone where you haven't got systems and processes, it's going to fall over. But if you've got the systems and processes, regardless of their energy force in terms of following process, and I go down to basic granular level, how to present a parcel for delivery and take the vehicle to a premises, all those granular level details. If you haven't got systems and processes, you've really set the person up you're trying to hand the baton over to failure.
Yeah, you haven't given the environment for them to succeed, the systems, the mechanisms that enable them to express their talent. Yeah, that's huge, I think. Absolutely huge.
And I think fortunate being growing up in a franchise, franchise is all based around systems and processes that, that's what you're investing in. The processes and the systems, what do we do on day 31 when you've not been paid? What do you do on not delivering a parcel? What do you do at these points in time where, it could go badly wrong for your client, the team member, and the management team that supports that team member, without processes, systems, and around that set of values that indoctrinated in terms of culture about what we are going to achieve as a team, is fundamental. And about that baton, and I'll talk about the Rugby Football Club. I was invited in by our director of rugby, Will, and having said to our inaugural launch of the Lions, the sponsors, that we're going to ban one word in this Rugby Football Club, and that is the word maybe. And I'd like to replace it from this moment onwards with the word definitely. And the only person that can use the word maybe we'll win, maybe we can do this, maybe we can do that. The only person that can use the word maybe, is a bit wishy-washy and fluffy, is Noel Gallagher of Oasis. We'll be using the word we're going to be using the word definitely. So Will invited me in to talk to his first team squad, 43 players. And I asked him over 2 years ago, Mark, where do you think Bournemouth Rugby Football Club will be in 5 to 10 years' time? And what do you love about the club and the team that you're involved with today?
Great question.
So this is a high octane level of excitement, a lot of Mickey taking, a lot of fun. And it took about an hour to go round the room of 43 players. But what I got to was essentially, there's one answer that I like from all of you today, and that one of you said that they'd like to win the Premiership, right? Out of all of the answers, but what I've essentially got is 43 different answers today. And if we were an SAS or SBS force going into an elite task or project or maneuver, we'd probably have a good chance of failing the mission because we haven't got a purpose, okay? So it's not for me to say what that purpose is. It's for you as a team, and I'll leave it with Will and the coaches here today, what that purpose is. Now, from that moment onwards, is nearly 2 years and a season, and I think we've got 3 games left now. We've lost 1 game.
And you're top of the league again this year.
Top of the league. And they're thinking again about what is our outcome, what is our purpose, what is our mission, and what is our goal. And again, stealing it from, together, anything is possible within this rugby club. Everything is possible.
Definitely.
From community,
Definitely,
our sponsors, and we've all got a duty of care, all of us, our members, our players, our families, to ensure that we're on that one page and going in one direction for the greater good of the town. Wouldn't it be great to have a Premiership rugby club in Bournemouth as well as a Premiership football club? It will be absolutely fabulous. and we can do it.
Yeah, it's fascinating because I am involved in the sports psychology and I work with soccer teams now. It used to be rugby teams. It's now soccer teams. And one of the things I do resonates totally with what you did with the team 2 years ago with Will Croker. And I asked the football team I was working with at the time, which happened to be Stockholm in Sweden, AIK Stockholm. I asked the players to take a piece of paper and write down the position they were going to finish in the league that year, the Allsvenskan, their premiership. And there was a squad of 26. And they scrunch the bits of paper up, they throw them in the middle of the room. And then as the facilitator, I pick them up and I open them. So there's no names, no pack drill. Why, Bob, have you got 10th when you should be somewhere else? So it's neutral, if you like. It's no names, no pack drill. And then I just read them out. I just said, oh, here we go. 7th, 12th, 3rd. And at the end of that, I said, so not unlike you, that we're all over the place. We haven't got one common purpose. And I said, we need to agree it. I said, I don't care what you agree, but you need to agree it. And it's just like you said about purpose. What they actually said at the time was, well, if we get in the top 3, we've got a chance of getting into Europe. There's a playoff, but we could get into Europe as long as we're in the top 3. And I said, how realistic? And one of the more senior guys said, it's not unrealistic because there are a couple of really brilliant sides that will probably beat us, but there's no reason why we can't be the best of the rest and therefore 3rd. And I said, what does everyone else think? And the group said, yeah, top 3.
Yeah.
And I said, do we tell the world? Do you want to go out and put that in the newspaper? And they went, no, we'll keep it in this room. There were no managers in the room, just players. And they said, yeah, let's do that. We came 2nd.
Wow.
And it was all that energy that the group decided top 3. And then actually towards the end, we could have won the league. And we started to actually get nervous because we didn't quite believe.
Yeah.
And the next year we said 1 and we won the league the following year. So the principle of getting ownership of the purpose does not have to come from the leader. Can come from the team. I think that's a big point.
And this was where I say, the not meddling. I would never ever suggest anything to Will, director of rugby, around anything around. He owns that. That's his space. He's won over the last 150 matches, 80% of his games. That's world class.
Well, it's New Zealand level percentages.
Yeah, that's New Zealand 76.9% win rate.
Wow.
Throughout their entire history. So, that's an amazing, outstanding guidance from and the team effort that and the expectation and the training regime and the review of the matches that he does, that's world class. And that's why, so excited about the future for the club.
Yeah, and good for you. And what a difference you make as president, Simon. I'd love to pivot now to your role and your leadership of the peer-to-peer group. And tell us a little bit about it, first of all, for those who have not heard of peer-to-peer. I have. Many of our listeners may not. Tell me about peer-to-peer.
Peer-to-peer is a very, very unique space for business leaders to share best practice, to skill up, and to spend 4 hours each and every month on themselves and on their business and not be immersed in the business. It's around strategy and defining clarity and purpose, culture, all the things that most business entrepreneurs are good at what they do, but not good at necessarily at running the business and running it in a sense that it's going to scale, and unaware of, they haven't got a strategy document, they haven't got a formal business plan. Most of it will sit in their head and in their minds. And as they grow, this is why most businesses scale to about less than 10 employees and under £1 million. And I think there's nearly 5 million of them in the UK. Success is very rare in the United Kingdom in terms of our region on the south coast of England. There's only 47 companies privately owned that turn over more than 100 million, and everything falls over in time. The Roman Empire, the British Empire, some of the biggest brands that we've grown up with have disappeared. If we look at the FTSE 100, 1980 1984 when it was launched. Of those 100 FTSE companies, only a handful exist today. So success is rare, but continued success is even rarer. So in a peer-to-peer board, we focus on what the continuum would be in order to create that success, and to, as you call it, hand the baton, how we develop a senior leadership team, how we create more sales, how we create more growth, how we build a culture. And we do that. And it's not the power of the chair within that environment. I'm a chair. It's how they facilitate the group. So how to get the best out of the group in terms of sharing the best thing that's happened to them, the mistakes that they're making. It's really opening up all the battle wounds within the board confidentially, and having some frames, formats, and templates that enable and engage those peer members to get to a greater good, but not just all about wealth for their businesses, but health, well-being, nutrition, because we know fit leaders will create fit businesses. So this is a space that business leaders can go to and exchange ideas, exchange the stuff that they're struggling with, the challenges, in a confidential environment. And yeah, we're having a lot of fun with it. And the
Give me,
members, they
because
keep coming back. They keep
yeah,
coming back.
I was going to say, give me a sense of size for everybody. You said a board, and a board is a group, isn't it? One group with a chair is a board. How many boards are there in peer-to-peer in the UK at your
We've got
organisation?
boards. I mean, essentially within the United Kingdom today, you could probably drive for about an hour and get to a board. That's where we are in terms of demographic, in terms of the numbers. We've got many chairs that facilitate these peer board environments. We've got an amazing leader, John, who's driving that business around the United Kingdom. And yeah, we the outcome we feel will be, we could have we're saying we could have 1 million members around the world.
Wow, that's very cool. I mean,
So
interestingly, I mentioned it's very cool, by the way. I mentioned when we first met that as a business, the Uspire partnership, we're going down the similar route. We're trying to create something similar, but we're very, very new at it. So I'm learning as I'm listening. Um, I see the value in it. I
yeah,
really, really do. You know, and as an independent business owner myself, and I'm on a team at the Uspire partnership,
yes. I'll
and
give you an
the
amazing
value of
example.
sharing, I think,
Yeah.
is the key.
So one of our members that sat in the beautiful Sir Jim Ratcliffe's hotel at Limewood in the New Forest, he was doing just short of about £10 million, and he's doing very, very well. Last month, a record month, we've now moved him from the Limewood board into our Chewton Glen, one of the finest country hotels in the world, where we host another board. Now, this particular gentleman was sitting between a company that turns over more than £1 billion and another
Wow.
guy that's fourth generation family owned business doing over 100 million. Now, that's a great space to sit, isn't it, in terms of
Oh, yeah.
success leaves clues. So he's going to be asking lots of questions outside of the environment. 12, 15 business leaders sitting in that board today, sharing best practice. That's the learning. And of course, creating these relationships, because we know that we become some of the parts of the 5 people that we spend most of our time with. And if you hang around with idiots, guess what? And if you hang around with people with aspirational, get stuff done type of people, you're going to start. If you start playing paddle with an Olympian paddle player or racquetball or squash player, and you're playing them every week, you're going to get good. There's no doubt about it. So that's what that peer environment is all about: being in the room with amazing people and achieving great things with them, and a lot of accountability as well, because you sharing your actions and your updates about the stuff that you're getting done. Very powerful environment. And for me personally, having been a peer member was a catalyst to try and help other businesses be in this space as well.
So let's pivot on that in terms of how do you, because this is your energy. I'd love to get an insight into this. It's very much about giving. I get, so you're a mentor, you're a leader in business, but also helping the community, be that in rugby or other aspects. So what's the vision now? What's your mission now as a leader?
Well, I've come to I'm 60 next year, and I know I look a lot older, and
I was going to say younger.
you're too kind. But I've got this, having great mentors around you. A very, very dear friend is full of energy. He's fit as an absolute fiddle. You know, super. He's 80 years old,
Wow.
and and I did ask him the question where, you know, what are you doing? Are you going skiing? And he said, well, I'm not skiing this year. My knee's playing up. So he's essentially hung up his ski boots. Okay, and that gave me a sense of, I've got 20 summers left, or 20 Christmases left, or 20 Valentines left, you know, where I can be present, really present, if I'm lucky. Okay. 60 to 80 is 20 years. And so for me now, I really want to slow down to speed up. So I am now, I've hung up my peer-to-peer boots, if you like, to say, look, I'm still involved with peer-to-peer, but I'm not actively chasing the growing the boards and developing the bit. That's, again, handed the baton to the team that are in
Yeah.
place to do that. I'm thinking I've really want to look after my members on the South Coast, and that's really all I'd like to do now, and slow down in a sense that I don't, if you can recall the fisherman's tale, the fisherman fishing on the banks of the Caribbean and catching his daily catch every day, and going into the finest five-star hotel in the world and using all the amenities, and his family are playing on the beach and he's having a wonderful steak, and every day he's going out enjoying his life, the sunshine and amenities of, let's say, Sandy Lane in Barbados. Now the bank has been watching him and saying, I want to invest in you, and I've been delighted to watch you, you know, for the last week or so, and I've got all of this capital that we can buy 12 more fishing boats for. You can fish the entire Caribbean, and instead of providing the fish for the Sandy Lane Hotel, we can provide fish for the entire Caribbean. How does that sound? He said, well, it's very interesting, the fisherman said. And he said, after which, 3 to 5 years down the road, I think we'll raise enough capital interest to raise enough capital to do an IPO on the NASDAQ. And what we'll do is we'll buy a fleet of trawlers, and not only could we do the Caribbean, we could do the whole north, south coast, and Canada, and have a distribution network to provide fish all over the US. And the fisherman asked, for what purpose would we want to do this? He said, well, you can stay somewhere like this every day. And the fisherman said, I'm doing that already.
Yeah.
And
Nothing new.
this is where I feel I am. So we work with a number of charities and the rugby club. I've got a very, very lovely community of business leaders that I'd like to work with. And for me, that's it. And yes, to slow down, to speed up in order to enjoy the next 20 Valentine, summers and Christmases.
I love
Does that
that
make sense?
perspective. Yeah, God, totally does. I'm gonna ask you a question about entrepreneurship, because you are an entrepreneur. We've heard that all the way through. At various times, you've been involved with 10 businesses at once. Very entrepreneurial. You said something earlier on, which I want to come back to, where you said entrepreneurs risk more than others would even dream or dare to do. And how do you almost build the courage to say, do you know what? I might even have to mortgage the house, but I'm going to do it. Because I think that's an extremely rare behavioral mentality. What would you say?
Belief.
Is it belief in
Fundamentally,
self or belief in what you're trying to
I,
do?
I, you know, the belief in ourselves of individuals, and you know, we all get that imposter syndrome. Can I do this? And I'm thinking, to hell with it. I'm going for it. I can do this. And I think that is the difference between, you know, the hundreds and hundreds of people that are involved in our space, whether it be clients I've dealt with, or is this belief. Okay. And let me share this with you. And I think it's really, really important in terms of this fine line between people and their belief and what they're manifesting, is that we've got one type of individual who know exactly what they want and know exactly how they can get to what they want and then what they're going to do to get there. Okay. And that is quite a rare breed. The other type of individual is the individual who knows exactly where they want to get to, but can think of 100 reasons why they can't get to where they want to get to. Finance, environment, people,
Age.
trends, just every single excuse to not get to where they want to get to. And that's when you're in that environment where people have got the clues, the breadcrumb trail of getting to the destination, the outcome, and working with them month after month. But we can't change people's belief, and we can't train belief. It's something deep inside of us that says, you know, I can do this. And, you know, whether you want to get fit and go to the gym, whether you want to be a great paddle player, or whether you want to do anything, golfer, wherever you want to be in life, you've got to have this get up and go and get it, and the belief that you can go and do it. And if you haven't got that, you've if you're saying to yourself, I can't do this, I don't think I can do it, you won't do it. You just won't do it. And that's, you know, that's the negative little chip on our shoulder goes, you shouldn't be doing this. And also some people around you say that. My mum, you know, I said, wait, I'm off to Birmingham. She said, what are you driving to Birmingham for? You know, why are you selling your, what are you doing? Why are you going, why are you leaving this amazing job and putting your house on the market? So you've got all these people around you that can doubt you and put that seed of doubt in your mind. And you've got to rise above that and be very mindful of the people that are there to support you, and always ask for help. You know, my greatest thing is that the most successful people on the planet will help you. You just got to pick up the phone and ask, and you'll be amazed at what help and support you'll get from picking up the phone and asking people for help and support, or grabbing a coffee or giving time. And people, the most successful people on the planet, have got an abundance of kindness, I feel, and an abundance of time and energy. And I'll give you an example with Tony Rowe, the Exeter Chiefs, taken them to Premiership, gave me 3 hours of his time. And, you know, what a generous man, you know. And he said to me, I was in your seat many years ago asking, I think he asked for some lunch for the guy who owned Leicester before we took Exeter Chiefs on the journey that they'd gone on to win Europe and win the Premiership. That's amazing, isn't it? What a gift from that very kind man.
Fabulous. Now, one of the things I love to do for the podcast is with my guest, I go onto ChatGPT and I put your name in, or the guest's name, and I go, what makes Simon Hawtrey-Coombs special? And I think it's great. This is really cool. So this is the top three. There's more than three, but these are the top three. Builds communities from the ground up. That's number one.
Bloody hell.
Isn't that nice? Cool. Number two, champions peer-to-peer leadership. And obviously that's because of your involvement, and it's triggered that. But you champion peer-to-peer leadership and focuses on people, not just profit.
Mm.
Isn't that cool?
Yes. I think, that's astonishing that ChatGPT can come up with something as cool as that, given, yeah, fabulous. No, absolutely fabulous.
So I commend it to anyone listening that, you know, when you're about to meet someone and it's an important meeting and you maybe don't know them yet, ask ChatGPT why they're amazing and then tell them they're amazing when you meet them. It's a pretty cool thing to do. So Simon, this is magical. I would love to ask you one final question, and it is a reflective one, almost of everything we've said. And it might be asking you to repeat because I've learned so much. What would your top tip be for someone who has not yet embraced a number of things you've said, whether that's a leadership role or having an absolutely clear expectation or sharing your expectation or asking for help? They haven't yet done what you're suggesting. What would your top tip be to someone to, come on, get on with it?
I think it's for what outcome and for what purpose, and have the end in mind, because we can work back from that, whatever that is, whether that be, you know, like a particular role or job within an organization, whether you want to be in a team or whether you want to start your own company, is always to have the end in mind around the purpose that you want to do it. And that is the fundamental thing that will get you out of bed in the morning, around the purpose you have to get to where that wants to be the end in mind, because we can work out how many factories, how many widgets, how many proposals, how many sales calls, how many we will need. We'll have all the attributes of how to get to that if we understand what the end in mind is. But around purpose, clarity, and having the end in mind is fundamental.
I think that's great. And it's the question, if they're not sure, is to help them with a question that I love to ask, which is, if it was impossible to fail, what is that end in mind?
Yeah.
Let's take out all the self-doubt and lack of belief and say, money, no object, what would you do? And then it gives them clarity. And from that, you can work backwards. Captain Simon Hawtrey-Coombs, we salute you. Thank you for your energy and for your insight.
It's been a joy,
Simon.
Mark. It's been an absolute joy to spend some time with you. Thank you so much.
Fantastic. Thank you.